तो आज इस लेक्चर में हम डिस्कस करेंगे DBMS इंटरफेसेस और DBMS का स्ट्रक्चर। स्ट्रक्चर से मतलब हमारा ये है कि व्हाट आर द डिफरेंट structural components, technical aspects of the DBMS, what the different modules or main software components. Okay. So firstly, we will talk about the database interfaces. So regarding the interface, what we can say? Interface, for example, let's say operating system. So we define the operating system as an interface between the user and computer. So what we can understand with the term interface? So here, basically by the term interface, we mean the interacting media or interacting medium, means by which someone or some kind of user or different kind of users can interact to achieve the purpose of DBMS. That means different types of users will interact with the DBMS environment or system by using some means or technical layer or technical aspects. That is the interface through which we can interact with the DBMS. Okay. So for this purpose, for different interacting media, we have the different kind of interfaces. So basically already we have studied the different kinds of users. So different kind of users will use the different kinds of interfaces with the DBMS environment. Okay. So here I have mentioned the 6 different interfaces: menu-based, graphical user interface, natural language interface, form-based, parametric user interface, and for DBA. Most of the time, different users will be specific to some different kinds of users too. So firstly, let's talk about the menu-based interface. So when the different users want to interact with the DBMS, so generally menu-based interface shows or represents or put the different options before the user in the form of menus. So here we have the menu-based list of the different utilities, generally in window-based user interface. So by using these menu-based interface, user can interact with the DBMS for his or her own purpose. Okay. So second interface is the graphical user interface. So here, as the name says, graphical user interface represents the graphical icons or some schema in the form of diagrammatic form. Some diagrams, different symbols are there before the user, and user can use the particular symbol in diagram or window-based interface. So most of the time, these graphical icons or diagrammatical icons will be selected or used or will be pointed by using some pointing device like mouse. So we have seen the different websites where if we open that website in our computer, we can click by using the mouse, or we can select a particular utility by using the keyboard, or in mobile, Android based mobile, or any type of touch screen technology, we can touch by the finger. So it's very simple to understand, it's very easy. Some graphical icons, diagrammatical icons are presented before the user, and user can select by using the particular kind of device, and we will be using the DBMS utility. Okay, now let's move to the third one, natural language interface. So here, natural language interface, like some text in English or some other language, can be used to interact with the DBMS system. For example, the technical users like programmer, they can use the query language or some English type of language, and this language consists of the basically DBMS commands for interacting with the system. So here in the second line, I am using the term schema. So schema, as I explained earlier, it is nothing but the structural form of the database objects. For example, in table, schema says what are the different attributes of the entity, and attributes in the sense what are the name of different columns, different fields with their type, etc. So schema, we will talk about the later regarding the schema. Okay, so let's go next, form-based interface. So here, as you have filled the different forms for different websites, for let's say when we create our login for email, so we have presented a form-based interface. By using that form, we can fill the entries, and after submitting, all the entries will be submitted to the particular database of that organization. Okay, suppose we fill the form for government vacancies or some kind of vacancies. So for filling the form, again, a form-based interface is presented before us, and by using that interface, we can fill our data to the particular database through that website. That is the form-based interface. It's very common, and it's generally for the end users. Okay. Next, we have the interfaces for parametric users. So parametric users, simply they are just another kind of online users. Parametric users such as, we can say, bank tellers, bank clerks, operators in some organization, or the concerned person at the railway reservation window, airline reservation window, which he can put the different facilities of that organization before us. So this interface, parametric user interface, or interface for parametric users, it involves a small set of operations which can be performed repeatedly by that particular user. For example, a small set of operations says the different operations are available and continuously that operations need to be performed. So parametric users like online users, that means the users who is responsible for the processing or the business functioning of the website of that organization to which he or she is working. Okay. So it's designed specifically for that kind of persons or parametric users. Next interface is the interface for the DBA, database administrator. And generally it happens, the interface for database administrator is the separate one. Every database of every organization or commercial organization will have a separate interface for the database administrator. And it's logical because the interface for the DBA must be separated out from the interfaces for the different users. Because system administrator need to use the privileged commands, for those commands, no other kind of users have the authority to use. So for using the privileged command, the page or interface for the DBA should be different. Okay. And obviously, these commands are used for different administrative tasks too. So administrator page should be the unique or different from the other kind of users, because administrator is the unique or the single person for that organization, and this is different from the many other kinds of users. So DBA interface, that means any interface for DBA is the separate one. Okay. Now come to structure of DBMS. That means what are the different structural components of a database management system. So as you can see, the different structural components are written over here. Ddl means data definition language compiler, the interpreter, query processor. DML interpreter, data manipulation language. DML means data manipulation language. And DSC, then file manager, disk manager, and storage manager. These are the different software components, or better we can say different layers of the DBMS. Technical layers or structural components of the DBMS. So we will talk about a little bit regarding each and every component, and you can see what these components are. So firstly, Ddl compiler. So Ddl compiler does what? It converts our Ddl commands or Ddl statements into the set of tables or set of objects. If we are using the objects different from the tables. So what these table contains, they contains the metadata regarding the database. Metadata I have already explained a little bit, as metadata is defined as the data about data. That means repository information. That means data about the tables. Different databases in different table forms are there. So different tables, you need data. That means the structure of the table. So all the tables structure will be put at one place in the form of repository information. That is called as the metadata. Okay. So Ddl compiler task is to convert the Ddl statement into the set of tables. Okay. Then Ddl interpreter. So as the name says, it is the interpreter. So it interprets the Ddl statements and records them in the table containing the metadata. Then we have DML compiler, data manipulation language compiler. Obviously, if it is the compiler, so it translates the DML statements into a query language. DML statement into a query language. Query language later on we will study. Now another term is coming over here, the query evaluation engine. Okay, so at the last, we can see what the query evaluation engine. Actually, many technical terms are there, so they are beyond your syllabus. So they need not to be discussed over here. Next is the data manager. So it is data manager is basically what it is the central software component of the DBMS. Which does what? The operations coming from the user's query. Whatever operations are coming from the user query, they will be converted directly by the query processor or indirectly by the application program. Okay. So what data manager does, it is responsible for interfacing with the file system. Interfacing with the file system, that means data manager is the part of the DBMS which runs at the upper layer than the operating system. If we see the layer diagram, so at the core, we have the hardware, then operating system, then system softwares. So DBMS as a system software lies at that layer. So now data manager is responsible for interfacing with the file system that is the part of the operating system. And it needs to interact with the file system because it needs to manage the data, responsible for data management, which is interacted with the file system. Because file system, we will study in the operating system, what it does, it maps the user's idea or user's point of view into a logical point of view in the disk. So data manager is also responsible for backup and recovery operations. Okay. Next, we have the file manager. So read out these 2 points, then I will let you explain. First point says what? File manager is responsible for locating the block containing the required record, requesting this block from the disk manager and transmitting the required record to the data manager. That means whatever query or information information transfer from the user side will be communicated. It's the responsibility of the file manager for locating these blocks. Either user need to be stored the data on the disk or data need to be fetched to the user from the DBMS. But who will be the middle person or middle software which provide this facility to the user from DBMS? So directly user cannot see or retrieve the data. So some middleware or some structural software component is there, the file manager part of the DBMS, which provides this information. That means which manipulates the record, the block number from the disk manager and transmitting the required record or data to the data manager. So file manager can be implemented by using an interface to the existing file subsystem, provided the OS of the host computer can include the file subsystem written especially for the DBMS. Meaning is that the host system, matlab OS of host computer means the computer on which we are working and the OS running on that computer. So it is our file manager. Next, we have the disk manager. So disk manager is also a part of the operating system. We will study in the operating system the disk management. So it is part of the operating system of the host computer. So whatever input-output operations are performed, they will be performed by the disk manager. Input-output operation corresponding to the storage or retrieval of the data from disk. So whenever we want to access the data, retrieve, or in any form, if some user want to access the database, obviously it will be from the disk. So disk manager part will be involved. Okay. So disk manager क्या करेगा कि सेकेंड लाइन पढ़ लो उसमें कि डिस्क मैनेजर क्या करेगा कि ये ब्लॉक या पेज को जो फाइल मैनेजर रिक्वेस्ट कर रहा है उसको ट्रांसफर करेगा जिससे कि हमारा फिजिकल कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स उस स्टोरेज मीडिया के यूजर्स के लिए या एंड यूजर्स किसी भी टाइप के यूजर्स को उसके डिटेल्स में नहीं जाना पड़ेगा. एक तरह से डिस्क मैनेजर प्रोवाइड्स द एब्स्ट्रैक्शन और लॉजिकल व्यू टू द यूजर. और लास्ट स्लाइड है स्टोरेज मैनेजर, तो इसको रीड आउट कर लो. ये क्या है कि DBMS का मॉड्यूल है जो कि डेटाबेस के लो लेवल डेटा यानी स्टोरेज डेटा और एप्लीकेशन के बीच इंटरफेस प्रोवाइड करता है. ओके. और इंटरफेस बिटवीन द एप्लीकेशंस और जो क्वेरी सबमिट की जाती है सिस्टम पे उनके बीच इंटरफेस प्रोवाइड करता है. तो नीचे इसमें लिखा हुआ है इसकी जो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है वो फॉलोइंग इन टास्क के लिए इनकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है. पहली चीज तो ये फाइल मैनेजर के साथ इंटरेक्ट करता है. दूसरा एफिशिएंट स्टोरिंग, रिट्राइविंग एंड अपडेटिंग ऑफ द डेटा. So this is the task of the storage manager. So by this we have completed this lecture named database interfaces and structure of the DBMS. Okay, so I'm closing this meeting now.